1 plus 1, still 2, right?
Oh, 1 plus 1 sure is 2. Tallahassee, this is Dennis here at Giant Straight Talk, powered by Online Big Blue LLC. Want to talk about the potential resurrection and redemption of Evan Neal, because this is it. This is the year. There is going to be no other chances. There are going to be no other opportunities. When we were at camp yesterday, we noticed that he was running with the first team at the starting guard position. And honestly, you want to root for Evan Neal. Some people don't. Some people hate Evan Neal because of the comments that he made. And they hated the Evan Neal comment about the flipping burger situation. But you kind of forget the rest of the comment or the rest of the statement. He was, I mean, he should never have said the flipping burger thing. That was a definite no. But the entire interview up to that point was very valid, where he said, listen, I could have 45 snaps. 43 of them could be technically sound, and the other 2 could be terrible. But they only want to talk about the 2. They don't want to talk about the other 43. And Evan Neal's more than had his ups and downs since his rookie season. He had the injuries and he's been inconsistent at best. But when he was playing last year, up until the injury, he was not playing poorly. Was he the best starting tackle in the league? No, but he was not getting beat as consistently. He actually had a pretty good run blocking grade, and he was working into his zone. But when you take a look at his body of work and you take a look at the type of player that he is, and we're going to go back and talk about the scouting reports a little bit, because we've talked about Evan Neal when he first came out of Alabama, how he probably was not going to be the best fit at the left tackle position. But when you bring in a guy that's 6'7", 350 pounds, and it has that side, and has that strength, and is a mauler, and everyone says he's a good kid, you want to root for him, and you want to see him succeed, and you want to root for him, because then if he fails that first Joe Shane draft class, there may be no one left on that roster from that class in year 5. There is a complete possibility that entire draft class, which was going to be the fundamental building block draft class, could be a bust, and the entire class itself. So, because I still think Kayvon Thibodeau's getting traded, and if you trade Kayvon Thibodeau, you already didn't pick up the 5th-year option on Evan Neal. This is it. This is the go time. You're hoping.
Do you see the light? What light? Have you seen the light? Yes! Jesus H. goddamn Christ! I have seen the light!
It seems as if Evan Neal has embraced the situation that he's in and embraced the idea of going to the guard position. Last year, I understood that he had an apprehension about switching over to guard midseason from his tackle position. Also, let's be honest. If you're a left tackle in this league, you're getting paid. If you're a starting guard in this league, you're going to make about half of what you would make as a starting left tackle. So there's an economic factor as well, but you also kind of reach to the point where if you're not in the league, you're not going to make any money. And that's I know. I know that shit is mind blowing. So he seemed to have embraced this switch to guard. And he looked, like I said, the first 2 practices, he's looked okay. We got a long way to go. We got to get some game reps. We got to get some ability. But a guy his size at 6'7", 350 pounds, and his strength, he should have an easy transition over to guard. It's not like Eric Flowers. Eric Flowers just had a bad attitude. Eric Flowers seemed at times like he thought that everyone owed him something, and he just, was the work ethic there for Eric Flowers? I'm probably going to say no. But if you take a look at Evan Neal when he came out of school, they refer to him as a king-size tackle with the height and size that cannot be taught. Raw power, natural strength to overwhelm defenders in tight quarters. Now, that's the key we want to focus on. In tight corners. When you are playing tackle, you are out in space. You are alone. except if you're bringing over a tight end or a running back. But if you're going to go into that interior line, think about that. You're going into that interior line, and he can overwhelm defenders in tight corners. I love it because the other thing they talked about him coming out of Alabama, amazingly powerful athlete. At his size, this is the most impressive lower body power athlete we have ever seen. His jumping power is in the top 1% we have ever measured. Now, that came from Matt Ray, the Alabama director of sports sciences. So this guy is an athlete. He can bench. He's benched 475 pounds and squatted 650. They talk about his versatility and him being a total dominator in the run game. Now, we haven't really seen this. We have not seen this at all from Evan Neal. We've seen it in spurts, but we haven't seen it. One of his biggest issues coming out of college, and we talked about this ad nauseum before the draft, that he has an issue and is very susceptible to the speed rush. We all know Evan Neal does not have elite quickness off the snap. And let's be honest, he doesn't possess, top level acceleration to bring in those defenders, to corral them, to get in front of them, to stop them from hitting the blind side of the quarterback. He doesn't have that. Not whatsoever. We've seen that. We've seen this now over and over again. But if you're in the interior portion of the line at 350 pounds, you do not need to have that speed. You don't have to have that elite quickness off the ball. You don't have to worry. He struggled mightily with that first move. And if you remember, he's kind of slow in reacting with a counter. He really is. But then said, and when you're out on an island, all this is just magnified to 10. And we've talked about this before. And it's a big problem that if you're trying to play tackle, he lunges. That just seems to be in his mindset. You would see in college him occasionally lunge, but he's lunging after the defender, which means you are not going to hold and maintain that initial contact, and they're just going to go right by you. But there's hope. You hope, and I'll hurry. And the hope is this. If you can place him in a situation where his weight, his height, his power, and his strength can be utilized, and speed and quickness, while factors in guard play, do not have to be the qualifying statement that will allow him to either be able to play in this league or not. He can get by on raw strength and power in the interior line. You can mask his deficiencies coming off the ball. You can mask his deficiencies against the speed rusher, because hopefully in that guard position, you're going to be communicating properly with your center, and you're going to be communicating properly with your right or left tackle. Now, here's the problem that we run into. We all remember Andrew Thomas's first couple seasons. Not the greatest seasons in the world. And Will Hernandez was his guard. And I always said that Will Hernandez hung Andrew Thomas out to dry multitudes of times, that he missed multitudes of assignments. And while everyone was blaming Andrew Thomas, no one was ever looking at Will Hernandez. Will Hernandez goes down with COVID. And Shane Lemieux comes into the game. I believe it was a Monday night game. And then all of a sudden, the heavens part. And then all of a sudden, Andrew Thomas starts turning into some type of a player. And we were all kind of shocked and befuddled by that. And I've always said this, and we talked to Jerry Oslowski about this, a former Bills offensive lineman for 10 years. It's the communication between the guard and the tackle and the center that is paramount. And you have to stay within yourself and play your assignment. And we knew at times, a lot of times, especially with his attitude and his anger issues, Will Hernandez did not play in control. The question is going to be, can Evan Neal play in control in that interior line position because you already have an undersized center who has issues. I mean, let's be honest. JMS, the first year, he led the league in holding penalties for a center. The second year, he gave up the most sacks by a center in the league. There needs to be some kind of help for JMS, and maybe there is a nice bodyguard in a 6'7", 350-pound interior lineman. But can they build that simpatico relationship together? I think they can. Because I think at times Evan Neal can be explosive out of his stance. And he can show surprising agility. It's just that lateral movement is where he's going to have the issue. But if he can get out of his stance and he can show control and he can man that center and that interior portion of the line and be a pile mover. Because right now, if you take a look at this giant offensive line, you got a lot of guys that are proficient or allegedly proficient at pass blocking. You need a rove paver. You need a guy that you could put out there, with put the hard hat on and the sign says man at work and allow him to push people around. If you're looking for a big body to run people over, to beat down on people, to beat down an interior defensive lineman, so when you hit that fourth quarter, they're tired and they can be moved, who is better to do that than a guy that is strong as an ox and is 6'7", 350 pounds? His strength has never been questioned. His athleticism has never been questioned. I'm going to say it again. Never has that been questioned from any time in his entire career in college. Amazingly powerful athlete. At his size, he is the most impressive lower body power athlete we have ever seen. Alabama Director of Sports Sciences, Matt Ray. His jumping power is also in the 1% we have ever measured. The guy is a freak of nature. What you need to do is make him a total dominator in the run game. When he came out of college, he was the best run blocker in the nation. And somehow he lost that coming over the Giants. I think that the resurrection and redemption of Evan Neal is around the corner. Do I think he's going to be elite? No, because he's going to have to learn the position. He's going to have to learn his trade. But for a guy that has power, he has strength, he can be a dominator in the run game. It's the perfect thing. It's the perfect storm. One of his other issues coming out of college and in the last couple of years in the pro is also his balance. He's kind of a guy that's got to show good discipline with his bend and his leverage, and he has to stay balanced. When you're on the exterior portion of the line, if you're not balanced, what's going to happen? You're either going to get pushed over or run around. If you're in the interior line, is it still going to matter? Yes. But will it be a total factor? No. You can disguise some of his deficiencies, and I think you will have the ability to show his strengths within that guard position. Oh, we're going to have a lot of fun. We got some big interviews coming up, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Check us also out on the Believe Network, where you can find us wherever you place that podcasts are. And again, this is Tim, this is New York Giants Straight Talk, powered by Online Big Blue LLC, and I'm out of here.